without much ado, I call upon Professor Mutara to now introduce our distinguished guest. Assalamu alaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor for me to introduce Dr. Khalid Abdullah Tariq Al-Mansour to you this evening. Dr. Mansour has a BA degree from Howard University. He has majored in philosophy and logic. Minor courses was in history and economics. He then went to the University of California at Berkeley, where he obtained a law degree, a Doctor of Jurisprudence in Law. He was subsequently admitted to practice in the Supreme Courts of the United States of America. He has also lectured at both his alma maters, as well as at universities of San Francisco, Harvard, Florida A&M, and many other international universities, to mention a few. Besides being a member of various bar associations, he is also a member of various Islamic Centers of America. He also serves on boards of directors covering the spectrum of biomedicine, electronics, insurance, real estate, and banking. He has written and published extensively and lectured on topics far too varied to mention here. In short, to use an analogy from the game of cricket, we have in our midst, ladies and gentlemen, a true all-rounder. I've had the honor this morning and yesterday to listen to Dr. Mansour speak. Those of you who were present this morning and heard his talk on the Palestinian issue will realize that I personally have never heard anybody present a problem such as the Palestinian one as coherently, the historical depth, the manner in which he presented it, and the simple manner in which he explained it. And those of us who were there this morning and heard his talk on the Palestinian issue, I'm sure will realize that it was one of the best talks we've ever heard. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Durban branch of the Islamic Medical Association, I now present to you Dr. Khalid Al-Mansour, who will be speaking to us on the minds and the mindless. Will the West control forever? Jazakallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a very great pleasure for me to be here this evening, and I must thank this organization for giving me the opportunity to address a subject that I feel very strongly about. I feel, in fact, that unless we, as responsible Muslims, understand the process whereby the world conflict will operate, we will be Muslims in name only. We will be empty shells, following rituals religiously and assiduously, but without substance. The battle of the 21st century is the battle of the mind. The battle of the 19th and the 20th century represented the battle of military might and power. The superpowers and the contenders to the throne have now recognized that all the nuclear capability in the world cannot guarantee control. Ask Mr. Gorbachev. As Eastern Europe disintegrates before your eye as a meteorite, elusive to the most brilliant soothsayer, prophet, and predictor, the superpowers are forced to recognize the money that was spent on a war economy by the United States and Russia provided Japan and Germany, who lost the war, to be at the economic top. Consequently, the West has now recognized that they cannot control the world, of which they are less than 13% today, and in 60 years will be less than 8% with nuclear capability. The only hope for controlling a third world by a very small minority is to convince that third world that they want to be ruled and controlled by a small group of white Christians and Jews. And the greatest threat to the monopoly of power for control is Islam. Why do I say that? At one time, Judaism, for some people, represented a threat. The Europeans in 740 AD discovered, quite by accident, a way to take Judaism over and control it. Every century from 740 AD, the religion of Judaism came into the hands of the European Jews who were converts. They are not original Jews. You will be pleased to read author Kostler's book called The 13th Tribe. Arthur Kostler is one of the most renowned, distinguished Jewish scholars. He wrote a book and he acknowledged that he had misgivings about letting it become public. He said, I know the research is accurate and I know the conclusions are true, but someone might misconstrue this book to hurt the Jewish people. But he decided at the last moment to let intellectual integrity and honesty outweigh personal feelings, and the book was published. His conclusion was 13% maximum of those who call themselves Jews today are biological Jews. The remaining 87% are the children of converts. They are Ashkenaz, of the tribes descendant from Japheth. They are not Semitic. They are not Semitic. So says Arthur Kostler. So do not be surprised if you have difficulty finding the book. Jews don't want to debate the issue. We have challenged them all over the world. You say, you are Jews. If we are wrong, show us. The Europeans found a way to take over Judaism, and now white people in Israel are saying, God gave us the land. There is no promise in the Bible to the convert. The promise is to Abraham and his biological seed. So if you in fact are the seed of the convert, there is no promise at all to you. So if Hitler killed 6 million Jews who were European Jews, and Hitler was a European, give the Jews part of Germany, not of Palestine. If you want to punish Hitler's wrongful deeds, the Palestinians did not kill 6 million Jews. The Jews are not the only ones that recognize that religion is important and must be controlled if you are going to control minds of people. The Christians took Christianity from the Middle East. They read the Bible. They saw in the Bible that Solomon said, "I'm black and I am good looking." They read in the Bible that Jesus was described as black and with hair like pure lamb's wool. They said, "Don't worry about that. We'll fix that up. Just give us a little time." They never read of a white angel with blue eyes and blonde hair. "Don't worry about it," they say. "We know what we are doing." Jesus became white. God became white. The angels became white. Moses became white. All of the apostles became white. Mary became white. And they then marched to the third world and said, "Behold the Lamb of God, who taketh away the sin of the world." All white. And then they came to South Africa and said, "We are here because God wanted us to tell you, you've been cursed. And God also wanted us to tell you that land you're on, He wants us to have it. And God also said that you're ugly. And He made you ugly so that everyone would know you should be working for us forever, free. And God also told us that He doesn't want to see your face, and we don't want to see your face either unless you're working for us free. So we have homeland, we have townships, we have apartheid. Why do we have apartheid? We don't even want it, the white people say. We don't like it. It's nasty. God insists on it. And God told us that we don't have apartheid, He is going to put us in hell. We have to do it. And then for 300 years, you begin to work on the mind. You say to the Africans, "You've never done anything. You're from an inferior stock. You can never learn. You can never read. You can never develop an integral family. You can never excel. You can never be a scientist. You can't be anything. And don't blame us." You tell God. But God has done something wonderful even for the cursed ones. He will let you get to heaven before us, white people, if you serve us, white people, properly. Just think about that. This life is so short. Yes, few whippings here and there. During slavery, we put brands on people's cheeks when they tried to be free. We had a pincher to suck out sections of flesh from a body and let the vultures, after 2-3 days, eat that person. That's what happened. But they said, "Don't worry. This gives you a chance to get to heaven before us. If you smile when we beat you, when we rape you, when we steal your land, the proof that you're a Christian is that you smile and you say, 'Thank you, Jesus.'" The mind and the mindless will the West control forever. And Mr. Napoleon, Emperor of France, had a little small book that he used to write in to keep his notes. And Napoleon said that Moses gave the Hebrews the correct blueprint. One God, love your neighbor as yourself. That was correct. But it was subsequently continuously disobeyed. If I were to use the names in describing the Jews that God used describing the Jews in the Jewish Bible, I would be deported as an anti-Semitic. But I didn't say it. It's what God said in the Jewish Bible. The Jews said God said it. He said, you're stiff-necked, you're rebellious, you're stubborn. I'm sorry I made you. You have continued to defy my laws. You have killed prophets that I sent to teach you. Why did I make you in the first place? This is a mistake. I didn't say that. I repeated what is written in the Jewish Bible about the statements that God made about the Jews. Napoleon said this became a problem. He said the Christians started out all right, but after the death of Jesus, they changed everything. And they came up not with one God, but three gods. Even though the Bible said, you shall have no other gods before me. They didn't put one God before him or two gods before him. They have three. They can't explain it. They don't know how it happened, but that's the way it is. Jesus said that if you blaspheme the Father, that can be forgiven. If you blaspheme the Son, that can be forgiven. But if you blaspheme the Holy Ghost, that can never be forgiven. How could they be the same? Jesus told Peter, I don't know when I'm returning. I don't know when I'm coming back. The angels definitely don't know if I don't know. The only one who knows is my Father who is in heaven. So if Jesus doesn't know and his Father knows, how could they be one? Napoleon said this is idolatry. However, there is one true religion. This is Napoleon. And that is Islam. This is what he said in his diary. Bonaparte said, I long for the day that Islam takes over the world, for surely it will take over the world. And what I would like to do is to take over Islam so I could rule the world. That's what Napoleon saw. Islam is the only religion that the West has not been able to take over. Do you realize that? The West has never developed a religion. Never. They put people on the moon, but they have never developed a religion. But they have taken over two of the so-called major religions in the world, and they would love to have the next one. But alhamdulillah, the Quran says Allah will not permit racism in Islam. So it's impossible to take over Islam. If you want to make it a racist religion, it won't work. You have to believe in genuine brotherhood. And this historically has been difficult for the white race to do. And consequently, we as Muslims must look at that sector of history that will enable us to determine where the West will try to take us over. And I'm suggesting to you it will come through the media. Through the media. Movies, television, books, pornography, especially television. Television, as distinct from the radio, is hypnotic, like drugs. You can walk by a television set intending to complete the assignment that you have in mind, and you happen to just glance for a second, just in passing, and you are hypnotized. And after a while, you catch yourself and you can proceed, or you may sit down to watch more. Why? When the radio is being played and conversation is being heard, your mind is interacting with the information that your body receives. You're wondering, who is that speaker? What does he look like? Is he fat? Is he small? Is he intelligent? Is he wearing glasses? Is he not wearing glasses? So your mind is interacting with you. But with the television, you see a complete picture. There's nothing for the mind to do. And then another complete picture, and then another complete picture. So you don't drink in concrete data, you take in impressions. And they are filed in your personality as impressions. Now, I would like to just digress slightly. Sometimes in my speeches, I digress. But I always like to tell the audience when I am digressing. Otherwise, they come up to me afterward and say, "You digress." I know I digress. I'm digressing. In the car this afternoon, I was talking to the brothers, and I said, you know, I really don't want to give my speech on the mind and the mindless will the West control forever. I've written a book with the same title, so everyone here can read the book. What I would really like to talk about is nothing from nothing leaves nothing, the story of life and death. The brothers told me, if you would like to talk about that, why don't you talk about that? I also wrote a book with the same title. So I thought if I were somehow lucky, I would combine the two. I would introduce the mind and the mindless so you know I prepared for you. Then I would switch to nothing from nothing leaves nothing. And in the course of reflecting, I recognize they do go hand in hand. The reason I like nothing from nothing so much, because part of it is autobiographical. 2 incidents occurred in my life that have had a profound effect on my outlook, my thinking, and even my commitment to Islam. Notwithstanding the fact that my father was a Muslim, I cannot describe myself as a very ambitious, committed Muslim prior to going to college. But an event occurred around my 14th birthday that remained with me throughout college and from the time that it occurred. As many young people imitating their fathers and their mothers, I was fascinated with the prayer positions. And before going to bed, January 29th, 1953, I decided just for fun to imitate my father. And about the time that I was going to stand up to go into the bed, I fell into some kind of a trance. I can't explain it. But I know that something within me left my body and went up toward the ceiling. And I remember looking from the ceiling down at my body, still in a kneeling position. The next thing I knew, I was in the sky. Someone was on my right side, and he had on a garment. We both had on folk-like garments together, but he was not looking at me, and I was not looking at him. And we were moving side by side, but he was communicating with me. And I was absolutely fascinated because he was explaining to me how the universe is tied together. And every time he would expand on the intricacies of the universe, I would comment to myself, of course, this is so simple. Why hadn't I thought of that before? I was happy. And then I became concerned. I said, Brother Khalid, you will never remember everything this man told you. Why don't you review the top 6 or 7 highlights, so at least when you get back into your body, you will remember that. I thought that was a good idea. So I went over some of the highlights of the wisdom that I had been taught. And I said, all right, I think I have a pretty good picture. And as soon as I said that, I was back at 1142 West Point Avenue. I got up, and I always kept a little tablet on my desk, and I turned on the light, I picked up my pen, and I looked at the tablet, and my mind went absolutely blank. I couldn't remember anything, which is unusual. So I kept trying to strain. I kept trying to think about skies and stars, something to trigger a recall. Nothing worked. The only thing that I could remember is, remember the power of the prophet, and I am teaching you the mysteries of life. I remember it word for word. But I was disappointed that I had not been able cognitively to recall the message. I did, however, recall the feeling of happiness and joy and bliss that I experienced while the lesson was being unfolded. And throughout my life, I have sought to retain that feeling of absolute happiness. And I must tell you, in all frankness and candor, since 1955, I have been internally completely happy. If there is any more happiness than I have had continuously since 1955 until today, I don't want it. I have no place to put it. It's like stuffing yourself when you're eating. Nothing. There's nothing I would change. There is nothing that I would do differently. Inside, alhamdulillah, I have captured the peace that I always longed for, and it stayed with me every day since 1955. What I will tell you about on Thursday is that my wife and myself have never had an argument. I don't know what it is like to have an argument with my wife. My children and myself have never had an argument. My law partners and myself since 1962 have never had an argument. I've been spoiled. My internal bliss is intact, and I can never lose that. So when I was going through college, when people started telling me about the bliss of drugs, I simply told them, the drugs may do everything that you say they will do, but I know what I have, and I see what you don't have. So after all the drugs, your happiness cannot compare with mine. Why should I experiment? I have never been unfaithful to my wife because I don't want to experiment. I don't want to take a chance of losing what I know I have, because I have friends who have been unfaithful and they don't have what I have. I have friends who drink and who are not alcoholics, just social drinkers, but they get hangovers. I don't have that problem. I don't have drugs. I don't have nicotine. I don't have the problem. I am not going to experiment with what I know I have. I've gone all over the world, and every time I talk to people, they say, I'm looking for happiness. If they are looking for it and I have it, I am not going to experiment. That is one lesson that I learned from my encounter with the man who told me, remember the power of the prophet, and I am teaching you the mysteries of life. A second experience occurred much later in life. Perhaps from a medical point of view, it was precipitated by being run down, not getting the proper rest. But the doctors told me for the second time I had double pneumonia and the future looked bleak. I was convinced that if I could get to some place where there was a lot of sun, I could become well. And I headed for Jamaica. I got as far as Atlanta, and they had to take me off the plane. And in the Regency Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, the doctor informed me, Dr. W.W. Stewart, you have 6 hours to live. My sister, who was in San Francisco, California, came to my law office just to visit. After she entered the door, she started crying. My secretary said, why are you crying? She said, my brother is somewhere dying. I don't know where he is. No one knew where I was. At the same time, another young man in Los Angeles, California, Billy Alexander, called the office and said, where is he? He's dying. And then I was in the bed, perspiring. They were changing sheets, and I was perspiring, and I went again into another trance. This time I saw my mother and my father standing side by side. They did not look at each other, but I could plug into their communications. My mother said to my father, Jamil, let's go meet Khalid. But her lips never moved, and her esophagus never moved. I didn't realize it till later. And my father didn't say anything. And she repeated it. My father didn't say anything. And the third time she repeated it, he said clearly, it is not necessary. He will make it. He always does. I didn't know how to speak back. I didn't know the form to adopt, to communicate, but I knew that there was such a communication structure. I would go from consciousness to unconsciousness. And to be honest with you, I preferred the consciousness or the unconsciousness. Because every time I was conscious, I could feel the pain. It was like fluid coming into the lungs, and you know it's not long before you're going to strangle to death. So when I was unconscious, at least I didn't have that feeling. But I knew I was dying, and I did not know how to die, and that bothered me. I was panicking because I wanted to know how to die. I felt myself leaving my body physically, but I didn't know how fast to leave. I didn't have anything to hold on to. When you grow up as a child, you have to learn to walk. You feel awkward, but gradually you learn balance. You first start holding on until you learn balance. I didn't know how to become unbalanced to leave the body as I entered the body. And without preparation, I started to control my departure in rhythm with my breathing. So every time I would breathe, I would permit another dimension of my inside to leave the body, and then I smiled. Much like a baby coming into the world, when the mother goes into labor, that's how I was leaving. I had never read it anywhere. I didn't know why it was happening, but it gave me the security. I knew how to anticipate the next move. I had found my balance. And then I reached the point where I said, you are at the crossroads between life and death. Do you want to die or do you want to live? And I said to myself, I know all there is to know about life. But in death is a new life. To know the totality of Allah's wisdom, to understand how the universe was put together, to be able to comprehend galaxies 22 billion light years away from the earth, 22 billion, and all of the mass and the space in between, 22 billion light years, represents light going at the speed of 186,000 miles per second for 1 year, or 6 trillion miles. 6 trillion times 22 billion is just one galaxy that our Creator put in this universe. I said to myself, to be able to understand all of the intricacies, I want to die so that I might live. And I was convinced at that point I was a dead man. When I found out that I was back in consciousness again, I was disappointed. I was frustrated because I had been deprived, I thought, of this perfect knowledge. The lesson that I learned from that experience is that I can never fear death again. I know how to die. Consequently, I know how to live. And I recognize that life and death is in the hands of our marvelous Creator. Alhamdulillah. What more can He do? This day art thou enemies in despair of thy religion. They cannot take it over. This day, so fear them not. Fear me. This day have I perfected your religion for you. And I have completed my favor. That means it's just I'm doing you a favor. I don't need you. I have completed my favor unto you. And I, Allah, have chosen for you, for your religion, Islam. What more could He do? A perfect religion. Not that we are perfect, but the religion is perfect. And then He provided us with a blueprint to go inside of us to follow this great, perfect religion on a balanced basis. Now, what does that have to do, you ask, with the mind and the mindless? It has to do with the following. I view the body as essentially three components: the mind, the body, the flesh, that is, the soul, the spirit. The flesh we know, especially the august practitioners of medicine who are present in this assembly. You must feed a certain amount of nourishment. Trillions of cells live, trillions of cells die. It's a cycle that reaches a plateau and at some point disintegrates. You can accelerate it through abuse. You can accelerate your death through alcohol, through nicotine, cigarettes, pipes, accelerating your death. The Quran wants to help, so it says, stay away from alcohol. Because it is showing you that your body is a gift from Allah. Don't disrespect Allah by disrespecting your body. Eat moderately. Obtain the proper exercise. Feed the body balanced meals. This is a respect to Allah. Before each meal, when you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, one looks at their body and they look at the meal and they say, Allah, this is for you. Some of the things that we eat, we even call them junk food. We would not offer it to Allah, but we offer it to ourselves who have been made by Allah. Stop that. Preventative health care. Learn of your body. Let our medical friends teach us how to eat properly with a balanced meal. We will rely on our experts to provide us with this information. That's the body. If you don't feed the body, at some point you will lose 30% of your body weight. You become anemic. If you continue in that pattern and you lose 40% of your body weight, you're dead. The body requires a recycling to perpetuate itself, and at some point, it's finished. The computer sends the last program, and the key that touches the end, the flesh decays. The emotions are the most devilish part of your personality, because the emotions are made up of impressions: love, hate, joy, envy. Throughout your life, you have learned envy. You didn't know envy as a little baby. You learned it. And you learned it in different ways, and you associated with different events. You can't remember tonight all of the experiences of envy and jealousy and hatred that you've had over your lifetime. But those impressions are stored inside. They are not going away. And they move at speeds faster than the speed of light. So when you make up your mind that I'm not going to gossip today, that's not nice. Before you know it, someone calls on the telephone and they say, do you know Sister So-and-so? I saw her today. She thinks she's cute. And before you know it, you said, you think so too? I thought I was the only one. This is not the first time. The emotions have the power because they are propelled by pleasure and pain. They want to avoid pain and they want to pursue pleasure. That's what happens to a drug addict. When the drug is taken in, it incapacitates the brain, so that the normal messages that your brain is sending to the body are shorted out. And when you are in such a state of suspension, your emotions run freely and wildly. And that feeling, you want it again. If you talk to any cocaine addict, the only time they got high was the first time. Every other time is an attempt to recapture the first memory of the high. That's why they keep going back. They don't want food. They don't want anything. They just say, this time I'm going to get it. That is addiction. Dangerous. But it shows you something of the emotions. It gives you an idea how powerful and how intense. That's what happened to Brother Adam and Sister Eve. After God made them, they were appreciative. God would come in the evenings and talk to them and teach them all knowledge. They loved that. They looked forward to it. And in their mind they said, we will never violate the commandments. But the brother Shaitan inside the emotions said, look, let them say whatever they want. Our time will come. And at the right time, Shaitan said to brother Adam, you probably are more intelligent than Allah now. Adam said, no, don't say that. I said, come on, Adam, be realistic. You know all the names of the plant and the animal kingdom. You know that. And you could know even more, and you could even be eternal. All you need is a little fruit. And the emotions took over. Adam started visualizing himself, walking over the garden and telling the animals, I not only know your name, I know every hair on your head. I can make you, I could break you. And the animals would fall down and look up at Adam and say, our master. The emotions. Adam did not want to do it any more than you wanted to gossip. Any more than you wanted to have that argument with your husband. You hadn't planned that. He hadn't planned it. He came home in good spirits. Just 15 minutes before, you were riding in the sky. He said, Assalamu alaikum. And you said, look, just don't be saying that all the time because you don't mean it. You're not in the mosque now. Did you get those things I told you to bring here? The emotions have taken over completely. Misunderstandings, escalation, children are watching, they feel disappointed, they feel let down, but it has gone too far. Now you have to wait till it subsides, just like a junkie. The emotions, do not fool yourself, are powerful. Powerful. Brothers and sisters, I do not personally, in all of my travels, know of any religion that specifically deals with this realignment process of the body except Islam. I don't know of it. I've studied many religions. I've visited many religious services. I have not been able to find it. What Allah has given us is an annual realignment opportunity through Ramadan. When we fast during Ramadan, we are not making God greater. How are you going to make God greater? Allah has given you a chance to realign your personality. Because as soon as you miss the first 2 minutes of your breakfast during Ramadan, your body starts saying, look, now that's enough. You don't need those old, antiquated, uncivilized practices, and besides, it's not good for your health. And even the Quran says that if you're sick, you don't have to fast. And the war starts. The emotions, using every trick they can. A billboard, a friend that you haven't seen in years saying, why don't you have lunch with me today? You are a businessman. You're embarrassed to say, I'm fasting. Because he's going to say, well, what is that, old chap? So you say, well, the Quran lets me make it up, so maybe I will go. I mean, just for social reasons, I will just go ahead and then but I'm going to add it on when Ramadan terminates. But the mind tells you, brother, you have promised Allah this day. No food, no liquid, no vitamin pills, no tobacco, no alcohol from sunup to sundown. Are you going to let down Allah? Your mind gets stronger. You get yourself together. You confine those emotions. And after 30 days of systematic discipline, of strengthening the mind, you are ready for a whole year. Because you have realigned that personality. You didn't kill the emotions, you put them in their place. You're less prone to have arguments at home if you properly observe Ramadan. Because that same mind will grab you when the emotions start to take over. The problem of television is it's like a drug. It creates impressions. You drink them in. You don't know they're there, but they're coming back to haunt you. And the program content that will come from America will kill you. It's vicious. It is filled with violence, and your children will be hypnotized. And you will say, you're watching too much television. And they will say, you're old-fashioned. Keep up with the times, Mom. Come on down here and sit with me and watch television. And you say, well, I can't. Well, I mean, after all, it's keeping the family together. You used to talk to the family to keep them together. You used to communicate with the family and convey ideas to keep them together. Now you tell the kids, I don't have time, I'm tired, go watch television. Communication breaks down. The emotions are fed by pleasure and pain. The body is fed by organic food. The mind is fed by ideas, reading, knowledge. That's what makes the mind grow stronger and stronger. The more you know, the more you read, the stronger your mind is. The less you are vulnerable to temptation. The greatest avenue for temptation is ignorance. That is why the message that came to the prophet, peace be upon him, Iqra, read. Didn't say eat, didn't say sleep, didn't say exercise. The first thing that was repeated for emphasis, read. The mind is the key to the personality. And if you want to control the third world in the 21st century, you must devise a plan to control the mind. Where fathers start molesting their daughters because of all the sexual images that have been programmed into you. In the United States today, it is projected that one third of every female would have been sexually molested by the time she is 21, and mostly from her father. Recently, a young man was holding his baby, was crying. The baby was about 15 days old. And the baby, as babies will do, urinated on his host. The man became enraged, threw the baby down on the ground, pulled out a knife, cut the baby up, and fed it to the dog. The media. Programming images to control your personality. America had no practical defenses. People didn't want to study in schools anymore. Pleasure became king. Whether it was bowling, whether it was movies, it didn't matter as long as it was pleasure. Sexual experimentation started breaking down value structures. No one knew how it started, and no one knew where it would stop. It's coming, my friends. America, with all of its money, with all of its universities, with all of its research departments, could not protect themselves from the onslaught of images that control their personality. We have the only mechanism that I have been able to find in the world, Ramadan, to cleanse the body. So don't take Ramadan to eat and put on weight. That is not the purpose of Ramadan. Some people, after the sun goes down, eat twice as much as they normally do, and stay up as long as they can and say, Alhamdulillah, I have kept your commandment. You cannot deceive Allah. He did this not for him. He did it for you. He knows what you need. He knows what your personality requires to be complete. So you fast and eat less. Should always lose weight during Ramadan. It gives the organs in the body a chance to rest. It gives the mind a chance to grow. But if you don't eat and you don't read, you're just starving. You are not fasting. You're just starving. If you spend all day on TV and you say, I'm going to just keep busy all day long, and you don't recognize the purpose of meditation and being in touch with Allah all day long, bonding, you are living beneath your privilege. This is a miraculous phenomenon that Allah has provided for his followers. Fast. Realign the personality. Strengthen the mind. Control the emotions. Cleanse up the body system. Be prepared psychologically, mentally, and emotionally for the ultimate realignment session, when you meet Allah himself, who is going to ask just a very few questions. What did you do with the body that I gave you? What did you do with the mind that I gave you? What did you do with the soul that I gave you? And what did you do with the emotions that I gave you? You cannot say, I would have been all right if it had not been for that devilish television. You are losing contact with your children. You are talking into them, around them, at them, but not with them. The love that we used to have is disappearing. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. There's more to Islam than kneeling in prayer. It is a daily religion. It is a religion for those who have been chosen, and it is the fastest growing religion in the world. If ever we as Muslims are going to be prepared to defend ourselves from this great onslaught that will turn husband against wife, children against parents, tribe against tribe, we need Islam and the Ramadan experience to keep us united. Muslim groups cannot hardly work together. Have you had that experience? That's the emotions. That's the ego. Who is president? That's where the problem is. We can get along very well as long as we are projecting the theoretical structure. But when it gets time to the election, who's going to be president? So I don't know about him. Ego. He did this to me one time, and this time he said this about me, and my wife said that she heard this, and he's going to be now president. What has he done? I don't even believe he's that good a Muslim. The only why I'm raising it is because we should have the best Muslim in charge. Otherwise, I wouldn't discuss it. The emotions move fast. They don't give you any preparation time. They don't warn you that we're coming. They take over, and before you know it, you have said something or you have done something that was totally out of line. So we are all divided. We can't even pray together. I don't like these people. I'm going to put my mosque over here. You put your mosque over there. My brothers and my sisters, we see everyone's problems but our own. All those Arabs need to do is get together. What's wrong with them? What's wrong with us? They have the same emotions that we have. And if they don't control their emotions, they will be divided just like us. And if there's someone behind the scenes manipulating the process through TV and through flattery, telling you you are better than the others. You know what some of our people love to hear? They love to hear white people say, you know, you're different. If there were only more people like you, and if those coffers were like you, we would have a better society. And before you know it, you have taken it in. And the next time you see a black brother, you are judging based on the images that you have taken in. Then you blame it on Allah. You say, you know, I've been thinking, and all these Africans, ANC and PAC and all these people, they are threatening us. We don't know what to expect, as though you were the ruling group. You don't count except in the eyes of Allah. Allah loves you. I don't know too many people who love us other than Allah. But they will divide us once against the other. Did you come from southern India, or did you come from what? Are you from Gujarat? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is not Allah. Allah gave us a very simple plan. But when we do not pray, when we do not fast, then we don't have the strength to be on guard, and we fall like Adam fell. Allah is inside of us. He said, I don't want you to go to anyone else. I'm inside. Go inside. He has the path, mustaqim, for us. Ladies and gentlemen, I am actually about half finished. But I promised my host that I would confine my remarks. They told me 40 minutes, and I said, could you give me 45? I think they may have given me 50. You've been very kind. I hope I have a chance to complete this address someday in this life. If not, you can read some of it in my books, and certainly Allah can tell the story better than I can. So whatever I neglected to say and omitted, if you will go inside of yourself, the message will live. Tomorrow night, my friends, is the big night. I'm not going to talk about life and death. I'm not going to talk about the mind and the mindless. Tomorrow is the hot night. That's the bomb. If you don't have the courage, don't come. If you're weak of heart, stay home. Only the strong survive. If you want to hear the truth without any window dressing, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, tell all of your friends, I want the Christians there, I want the Jews there, I want the Muslims there, and I don't want you getting upset. Say, but don't have these people come in and embarrass them and say things. They know everything I'm going to say. They know very well. The Jews know and the Christians know, and you should know. If you don't know and you come tomorrow, you will know. 8 p.m. sharp. I suggest you come early because it's going to be packed out and you'll be mad at me because you don't have a seat. Come early. Tell all of your friends tomorrow night is the hot night. That is the explosion. Ma salam.
Somebody in the back needs to ask the question to come to the front.
Yes, sir.
Does Islam need personalities like Khomeini, Saddam Hussein to give Islam prestige?
I'm sorry?
Does Islam require personalities like Khomeini, Saddam Hussein, etc. to give Islam prestige?
Thank you very much. Everyone has heard the question. Do you need personalities to give Islam prestige? One thing that has always impressed me from a purely humanitarian point of view is the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him. A man who did not have formal education and became a political leader. He became a military strategist and leader. He became a teacher. He became the head of a household. He became an evangelist. And what great message that he left with us all. Do not try to rate the prophets. Don't compare me with Jesus. Don't compare me with Moses. Don't compare me with anyone. That's none of your business. Allah will judge each of us based upon the talents that He gave us. He knows what He gave us. So if you don't do something that I think you should do, I always have to ask myself, did Allah really give you the talent? Or was I deprived of the talent? It is in my view that the final message of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was there will be no more prophets and apostles. That seems to me to make very clear that we need no one else. The message, he even told his disciples, if you worship me, you are going to hell. That's why it is an insult to call us Mohammedans. It's not like Christianity. We don't worship Muhammad. You recall when Omar became slightly confused, and he heard the rumor that the prophet had died, and he said, if anyone repeats that, I'm going to do bodily harm. And Abu Bakr tried to get his attention, but Omar is kind of involved, and he was excited, and he couldn't catch his attention. So Abu Bakr went a little ways, and he stood up and very calmly told the people, those of you who worshiped Muhammad, he is dead. Those of you who worship Allah, he is alive forever. Notwithstanding the clear message, man has a tendency to strive for idols. The Prophet told us clearly, do not worship me. Don't try to make me into anything. I had a function that was to give you the message. What is the message? The message is you should be like Adam. Allah spoke directly to Adam. He'll speak directly to you. Go inside of yourself. Allah is there. That's all I can tell you. Do not worship me. The direct answer to your question is I need no one but Allah. No one. I'm happy for any and all the brothers of the Ummah and the sisters who live Islamic lives. If I see good traits, I will tell my children, look how these traits are being manifested. But I'm not going to wait on anyone because no one is perfect. Allah is perfect. And He is giving us the blueprint. If I didn't have a blueprint, I would be nervous. I would start going around the world saying, do you have a blueprint? Teach me. If you have a blueprint, teach me. Allah said, I have given it. It is over. It's only when we try to make it complicated that we start getting layers upon layers and we start acting like the Christian. Joseph will tell you. If he doesn't tell you, Mary will tell you. If she doesn't tell you, then look to one of Jesus' brothers, James or John. That's not Islam. Allah has no partners. There's one creator, Allah. We don't need hero worship. That isn't to say that we shouldn't respect good, sound leadership, but it is to say that Allah is the one that perfected the religion. It's perfect now. All that it needs is for you to live it. And if you are not living Islam, I don't care what personality exists in the world, when they asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, give us some signs, he said, what do you want? Well, they told Jesus, bring back someone from the dead. Let him tell us that it's true. So you think they're going to believe that? The message is given. No more excuses. No more procrastination. No more saying, Allah, if I had just been sure, I almost started to do it, to live an Islamic life. But I wasn't. I just needed just a little one. The message is clear. The messenger is clear. It is up to us, with no excuses, to live the Islamic life, which is the greatest life in the world. Your neighbors should be envious of you. What I like to hear when I go around the world are the non-Muslims saying, I wish I were like the Muslims. Their household is so peaceful. Their children are so well behaved. There's so much love in the family. I just love to see the people, the husbands and the wives, as they walk through the streets, they radiate peace and self-confidence, and they radiate intelligence. I love to hear that, because it means that you are doing what Allah wants you to do, and you are the beneficiary. You are the one that benefits. Your children grow up healthy. You grow up healthy. Your family life is healthy. You're living in an environment of peace internally. Your environment is peaceful. You have everything that people want, merely by complying with the blueprint of Allah. My brothers and my sisters, let us incorporate Allah in every dimension of our life every day. Professional, people on the streets. Islam is not begging. Islam is not coveting other people's wealth. Islam is not jealousy, saying, well, these doctors have too much. They're not doing enough for Islam. Allah judge that. Make sure that we do our obligation for Islam. Don't let jealousy in. Don't let covetous in. Keep the model of the Islamic life in all dimensions of your personality. Let us be more efficient. I was very impressed in this whole tour. This is the most organized, efficient tour I have ever had in my life. Every place I'm supposed to be, they tell me what the group is, who's going to be there, what the main characteristics are, pick me up, bring me to the group, and you have been wonderful. I mean, I'm spoiled. I might not leave. There's no reason for us to be inefficient. We get sloppy in our communities, and we teach people to be beggars. Zakat is wonderful to help, but we don't want to use zakat to make people beggars. We want to show people how to do things that they can then do for themselves and show someone else. Each one, teach one. The medical facility that I saw today, absolutely fabulous. Right in the midst of the black township. And the people respect it. The people, the neighbors, those who are being benefited. Brothers are serving sometimes 150 to 200 people a day. The people know it. When the violence occurred, the word went out, stay away from that clinic. That is run by Muslims who respect us. That's a wonderful testimony. Allah will never forget that. The smiles on the people's faces that I saw today, the school, these brothers in the school, we had a great time talking about life and challenge and studying. And I asked them to raise their hand if they would commit to me that they are prepared to study. And the hands went up. This morning, the young people's hands went up. It was a beauty because they were affirming in the name of Allah to use what Allah has given them to the glory of Allah. It was marvelous. We want to continue these kinds of worthwhile programs. We want to expand them. We want to be efficient so that the world knows. Our schools, we want the highest grades in this country. We're not average people. We have a perfect religion. So we're telling our children, we want to be number one in all of South Africa. When they give out all the examinations, the newspapers have to print the Muslims again, number one academically in all South Africa. That is a recognition of your faith. In all that we do, let us be achievers. Let the doctors write in journals. Let the doctors qualify for a Nobel Peace Prize. They may not give it to him because of discrimination, but the doctor knows that he earned it. The doctor knows that he has competed with the best mind. And we have some incredible doctors in the Muslim community. Let us respect our own. Sometimes we don't go to our own doctor. Say, well, you know, somehow a white doctor is just a little better. I don't know what it is. But he just seems more professional and competent. They read the same books, they went to the same school, and the brother was at the top of the class and the white was average, and you're telling me he's better? This is brainwashing. Let's respect our own. Let's build our own. People will respect our own if you respect them. Bring some of these doctors, if they don't give them a Nobel Peace Prize, give them an Islamic scientific prize for what they have done. Our biologists and our lawyers. Our lawyers should be writing briefs for the PLO. They should be preparing petitions so that the PLO can sue in the world court to get the land that belongs to them. These are the kinds of activities that give your children direction, gives them a sense of pride, and gives us a fulfillment in all that we do. Are there any other questions? I told you I was only half finished. All right. Thank you very much again, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night, inshallah. Ma salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Now I see the wisdom of the organizing committee. They put the dinner first and the speech afterwards. And after this exhilarating speech, the gajar ka halwa, the chicken halim, and the lamb kalya is a distant memory. First of all, I would like to thank our guest this evening, Dr. Al-Mansour, for giving a very thought-provoking, a very educational, and I think a very inspiring talk this evening. The Islamic Medical Association, the Durban branch, would like to thank you for being here with us. And indeed, I think on behalf of all present here, we would like to thank you for spending this evening and giving such a very educational talk. You spoke about two things. One was, you said you have two books. One was The Mind and the Mindless. The other was Nothing from Nothing Leaves You Nothing. I have a new title for you for your next book. It should be Mind Over Matter. And we'd like to thank you also for telling us about the complexities of life. And also giving us and showing us the simplicity of Islam and the solution it presents us. We are very grateful for you to bringing us You showed us that you are a very profound thinker and indeed a very perceptive human being. Thank you. This function here this evening is due, it all started with one telephone call from Ibrahim Lokat, Ibi Lokat, to Muhammad Mahet, and said, would you like to host Islamic scholar, very prominent scholar from America? And, we were very grateful. I said, okay, we'll take this opportunity and host him. We didn't know what a dynamic scholar he was. And we'd like to thank Brother Ahmad Didar and the IPCI International for allowing us to host this dynamic scholar. We would also like to thank Mr. Mia, who provided the eat this evening, and I'm sure most of you enjoyed it tremendously, and his catering team and his family who has been with us here this evening. We'd like to thank you very much. And last but not least, we'd like to thank all of you for responding so well to our invitation. And we thank you, and we hope you support the IMA in future. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.